Hi everyone. So today I would like to focus on the parallel Earth that I consider the original Earth or the original timeline. It's the place that I most visit when I journey to the parallel worlds, because it's the place that is kind of the original Earth that many of us go to after this lifetime. Many of us are there in their parallel existence. And it's a place that I discussed in other videos that is actually our very distant past and very distant future, because this timeline or this version of the 3D universe or 3D Earth or the Matrix, if you will, is it was shown to me that it's kind of like a time loop, that I have this illustration for it here. So this is how I see it. It's kind of like a time loop from the main timeline. And it's kind of a detour if you think about it. And it should eventually connect back to that original timeline. So we used to, in the very distant past, we used to be softer density, just like that original planet or that original timeline, and we're heading there. And now the last time I journeyed, I saw it as a kind of a circle, and that now we are in the middle of that journey. And what is so special about that middle is that it has a very straight connection to that point from where it originated. So it's the opposition. It's kind of like the darkest time of this time loop, of this world. But it's also there's this possibility to return to the original timeline or the original world, because there's a straight connection. That's why these days and these times are so crucial, because then we will kind of go, back. But I realized that the time loop may not be just once. It could be like many cycles, just that we are kind of looped in the same, repeating the same mistakes, still going through the same issues, the same themes. For some reason, it's like a kind of this magic circle that only through the center, only by finding your center, you can get out. And that's the source of most philosophies, religions, mysteries, is to find that source, that center, so it makes sense. And if we are in the midpoint, I like to compare it to the middle of the story, the midpoint where the character goes through this big inner change. It's where they realize that there's this second half of journey ahead of them, which is more action based and more like the first half of the story is kind of the introduction and the setting of the journey, the first turning point, and then the second half is kind of solving the issues that were presented in the first half. So if we are in that part, then it means that it's a really important point where we are supposed to look around us, but also within, at how it all reflects, and figure out that inner place, that inner portal to our prime selves. During my inner journeys, I often visit this very distant past or a very distant future, and I see the soft density Earth, the original Earth, much more benevolent and much more harmonious than this imperfect copy. Just to describe it a little bit from my own experience, the nature is very similar but much more vibrant. Everything works in harmony and in cooperation. There is not this tough food chain that we have here in this matrix of one organism surviving on the other. It's in a much more harmonious exchange. The plants, I saw moving trees, for example, giving their fruit. Nothing is in some pain or struggle. There is no program of pain. And all the beings live in harmony. And the way we survive there, even the humanoid species, is mainly pranic energy, prana, but also certain liquids and fruits. And all the animals there live in harmony. There's not like this, beast and prey kind of thing. And there are many different species that for us now are considered mythical or legendary or extraterrestrial. I saw unicorns there. I saw dragons there, all kinds of dragons, kind of smaller dragons like dogs. And there are all kinds of beings that we know from fairy tales or legends, but here they are already just in fiction. And there is the very powerful elvenkin. There are giants. The elvenkin is one of the first races that was there. They are the elders, we could say. And when I focus on my parallel body there, the elven body, I look different, of course. I have white hair, have very pale skin. The skin is kind of luminescent, and it's softer density. It's more light-based. And I can see into my body. The veins have this kind of rainbow-like blood. I don't know if it could be even called blood. It's like a liquid. And the organs are beautiful. I can see inside my body. I can see the organs, but they're more like crystalline. They're more like crystals. It's really beautiful body, and I feel the energy of the prana and these kind of essences and liquids that sustain my body. And there are many different kind of elven or fairy beings. There are the smaller ones, the hops. Then there are these kind of little ones like gnomes or little pixies, flower fairies. But there are also these horned beings like fauns. They all live in harmony, and different kind of extraterrestrial species. One of my favorites are the cat giants, and these are kind of like giant cats that stand on their hind legs, but they're not humanoid. They're cats, but they stand up straight, and they're really wise. And there the universe is connected, so we are aware of the different planets, and we are all kind of connected through these star rivers, as I could call it. We just travel through these star rivers. And from my understanding, this is like the ancient past before this version was created. And I remember when this matrix was being created, that some of us were kind of lured in here to play, but then it became really tough for us. Like at first we went to try it, but then it became really tough because the consciousness is so limited here. Over there, we are aware of our multidimensionality. We are aware of the afterlife. We are aware of the wider perception, the wider dimensions, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and we can kind of work with it to a certain extent. Like there's still time and space limitation there, but the soul is free there. It's kind of like if we imagine that we would go into second dimension, we would suddenly become 2D, but we can at any time return to our 3D self. We would suddenly stop being just this figure on a paper, for example, like a flat figure, and we could become a figure with volume again. But here we are kind of cut away from it. So it's like being this flat 2D drawing on a paper that is unaware of that it can become three-dimensional, that it can, become, it can be in space and time. So it's something like that here we are really cut off from these multidimensional abilities. And over there, we can all self-heal, self-rejuvenate, self-regenerate. We can work with very advanced science, which is kind of viewed as magic from our perspective, or used to be in the distant past. And I remember that when the matter kind of got denser, and the material error, as it could be decoded, the matrix was created, that it became so dense, so the bodysuits started to feel kind of like literally like a spacesuit or like a clothing, like a heavy coat. Sometimes I feel it like a very heavy thing that our soft density bodies could permeate and kind of play in that new world with these very tough limitations. But the biggest problem became when the consciousness started to be limited, and there was this soul amnesia when, you know, in this material matrix world, we incarnated with the soul amnesia, forgetting where we originally came from. That became like the biggest problem, and that's why the beings from the soft density world, the original planet, the original timeline, have a problem with that, because they remember that they have all these different multidimensional abilities, and they're in contact with the larger dimensions or higher dimensions, if you will. As for the cities, there are cities like here. There's a different architecture. I find it's much more beautiful. It's much more in tune with nature. So everything is from natural materials, from stones, and there's a lot of plant life and different kinds of beautiful parks, beautiful natural sceneries, and all the architecture is kind of in tune with that natural scenery. I believe that this is the place that in the Irish legends it's called the other world. It's like, it's not the afterlife, but it's that other parallel earth. And it's been connected throughout history through the inner earth. I feel like the inner earth was always the gateway, because when I journey into the inner earth, I'm aware that there are these portals into the parallel worlds, and especially to that original earth, this original planet, the original timeline, but also to the higher dimensions. But it seems like this matrix doesn't extend bigger than like fourth dimensional reality, and partly fifth dimensional. And fourth dimension for me is like the timelines where we can time travel, and we can also create with time certain time capsules, for example, like moments that we really love, we can preserve them in time capsules and return to them at any time. Kind of like here we capture a moment on a video camera, or we capture a photograph. There we can capture the whole moment in the time and space and return to it at any time. But there are also these time loops where like beings can like create these time loops for other beings, and it can be quite a messy place. But the matrix, from my understanding, also partly is in the fifth dimension, because it creates these false places sometimes, and I think this is the in-between where the souls can sometimes stay unable to return to that greater dimension, greater self, higher self that is always there in the fifth and sixth dimension. But during the incarnation in the 3D, certain 3D worlds or matrices, it can forget about that connection. So then this in-between and these different versions of heavens and hells are all there. But in the original timeline, on the original planet, we have a straight connection with the afterlife, so with the fifth and sixth dimension, where we already create worlds, and we are aware that we co-create the 3D worlds. So we incarnate and we die consciously. We are always in contact with our higher self. So it's like I said earlier, it's like we would now become a flat drawing in a 2D second dimension reality, but we would remain in contact with this 3D self. But in the matrix, it's like you're just stuck there. But it's an illusion, of course. And I think now, since we are in that middle of the time loop, it's like this perfect moment for us to reconnect with our original selves, because most of us have this parallel existence there in that parallel original earth, the original timeline, or in the what I call the prime reality, or the afterlife, where the consciousness is larger in the fifth and sixth dimensions, and etc. Where, you know, we are always there, and it's just about remembering that we are there always, and we are always in contact with these incarnated parts of us, parts of the spirit, the parts of the soul that incarnate into the 3D realities, 3D planets, into 3D universes, 3D timelines.